today is the role that communities and faith leaders can play to transform commitments into concrete action. We will therefore hear from faith leaders, but also from UN health and nutrition experts, from civil society, from youth, and of course from the Voice of Farmers. But before this, let's start with a few facts and numbers. Our food system at the moment is broken. Last summer, the most recent SOFI report, that's the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report, reminded us that over 800 million people worldwide were facing hunger and malnutrition, while around 40% of adults globally are overweight at the same time. So we have an inefficient, often very heavily subsidized food systems that fails to feed the world while making other people sick. On emissions, food systems, we know it, I think, and we talk a lot about it in the past COPs. Food systems represent around 1/3 of total greenhouse gas emission, while animal agriculture alone accounts for up to 20% of total greenhouse gas emission. Around 80% of the world's farmland is used for livestock, even though these products only provide 37% of protein and 18% only of calories in our diets. So our current methods of meat productions are not, for example, meat production in this case, are not only very inefficient, they're also driving rising greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity loss, food insecurity, and not to mention, of course, the risk of future pandemics or antimicrobial resistance AMRs. The challenge we have to face is that meat consumption, according to the FAO, is expected to double by 2050. And we also know that even if we would phase out fossil fuels tomorrow, we would not achieve the Paris Agreement with the current, at least, path that we're taking in food systems and the increase in protein consumption worldwide. The IPCC also regularly acknowledges that some of the most effective solutions to mitigate emissions from food systems are coming from plant-based alternatives and potentially at a later stage from cultivated meat. How do we unlock and how do we scale up the potential of healthy plant-rich diet through protein diversification? We have a great panel today, and I'm delighted that our first speaker today is Rabbi David Rosen, is co-president at Religions for Peace. He serves as special advisor to the Abrahamic Family House in Abu Dhabi, and he has been advancing understanding and good relations between religious communities for more than 40 years, from the time he served as a rabbi of the largest Orthodox Jewish congregation in South Africa during his tenure as chief rabbi of Ireland, and through the last more than 30 years is based in Jerusalem. In addition to interreligious representation and education, his work involves mediation and peace building, and he is heavily involved in multi-religious engagement on ecological issues. Among the various awards and recognition he has received, Rabbi Rosen was granted a papal knighthood in 2005 for his contribution to Jewish-Catholic reconciliation, and in 2010 he was made CBE, Commander of the British Empire, by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, for this work promoting interfaith understanding and cooperation. So Rabbi Rosen, I will let you the floor for 6 to 8 minutes, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Raphael. It's a great pleasure to be with you all here, a great honor to represent Religions for Peace. And I'm very happy that I'm the first speaker because I'm certainly the least qualified here. And were you to allow everybody else to go before me, I would have absolutely nothing to say. Well, you've already given most of the data, so I really don't have too much to be able to say. But I would like to open by saying that while some people might wonder what the connection is between religion and combating environmental degradation, it should be obvious. Because if, as all the religions affirm, this is not just a happenstance ecosystem, but is a product of a creation of a universal mind, of a transcendent power, then the whole of our environment is the manifestation of the divine. And therefore its degradation, let alone destruction, is, if I could use an anthropomorphism, a slap in the face to the Creator. It is an impiety in and of itself. Religions must be in the forefront. In fact, religions that are not in the forefront of combating the challenges of climate change and environmental degradation betray the most noble values of their respective heritages. there is within Jewish tradition a particular teaching which may well exist in other ancient traditions, or I'm not as aware of it, and in sort of certain modern documents like the Pope's encyclicals, Laudate Si and Laudate Deum, have sort of raised this as if it is a kind of a new idea, but that is the concept of what he refers to as the culture of waste. For Jewish tradition, waste is a transgression. It is a transgression, any kind of waste. To take more food than you need onto your plate that you're not going to eat is a transgression. Therefore, the children are brought up to understand that you have to live within your means, and you have to live with a degree of modesty. This doesn't mean that you've got to live with some form of self-denial or in any way to suffer. The world, the gifts are there to enjoy, but to enjoy responsibly in a manner that is therefore sustainable, and sustainable not just for yourself and for your family, but for society and indeed for the world at large. Yesterday there was a focus on health here, but to the best of my knowledge there was hardly any focus on the consequences of health to the whole question of diet and of the lifestyle that we consume in the majority of the world. This is not only a situation, a scandal that Raphael referred to, the fact that there are something like 25,000 people dying daily from hunger, where the world has enough, as has been said, enough food to feed, but not enough food for our greed, at least not within certain sections of the world. But in order to be able to satisfy this crazy human overindulgence in animal flesh and products, the conditions are such that animals have to be injected, sometimes sensors almost, with hormones and antibiotics to prevent the proliferation of disease, things that are retained within animal flesh, then consumed by the human beings. And there is a clear correlation, not only between heart disease and cancers, but between especially hormonal imbalance as a result of the hormones retained within animal flesh and conveyed to us. And there doesn't seem to be any discussion about it. In fact, the very fact that at COP28, it's not a plant-based diet regarding whether every facility for provision of foods is itself quite scandalous. People are not speaking about the major threat. And as we've heard, the livestock industry and its correlation and its consequences causes more damage to our environment than all the forms of transport all put together. It's great that we're trying to have carbon-free transport as much as possible, but we should be changing our lifestyle and our diets first and foremost, because that's a far more significant source of waste of land, waste of water, of the resources, and of course, a damage to the rainforests, which we have here Dr. Charles McNeill, who's responsible for that at the United Nations. And Religions for Peace, who's acting director, is here as well, was together with the United Nations Office and the government of Oslo, took the initiative to have an interfaith rainforest initiative, because the Pew Institute has indicated that over 84% of the world sees religion as relevant to their lives, as a significant part of their lives. And certainly in the places where there are rainforests, where the vast majority are indigenous communities, these are deeply religious and spiritual communities. And they have preserved the culture for humanity, and rainforests serve our needs and our well-being, our air, our environment, the biodiversity. The destruction of these rainforests, which is going on at a rapid rate, not only is in itself a travesty and a danger for these particular communities, but it's also threatening our world. Were we to adopt a responsible plant-based diet, we could prevent this. Finally, just let me say that within the livestock trade today, there's more cruelty than ever before. Our great-grandparents would never have imagined that the kind of cruelty is indulged in today in order to be able to satisfy human indulgence. This is therefore fundamental in terms of our compassion, not just in terms of our compassion for the well-being of animals, but our compassion for ourselves, how it affects us and our in the spirit of our society and well-being.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi Rosen. Very powerful in Geneva, being the focal point for several partnerships and initiatives focusing on nutrition and food systems transformation. Recently, you were the engagement coordinator in the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub and the WHO focal point for the UN Food Systems Summit. You're also a member of the UN Decade of Action on Nutrition, FAO, WHO Joint Secretariat, and I will stop here because there was also a lot of others. But Lina, you represent the WHO Nutrition and Food Safety Department here. Is WHO working on food systems transformation, and from what perspective, from your view?
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you for that question. Thank you also for inviting WHO in this esteemed panel so that we can also share our thoughts with all of you. Also, already after Rabbi Rosen, he was already mentioning Health Day that happened yesterday, and how it is a scandal that diets don't have their plates there yet. I would tend to disagree a little bit. I am in this nutrition business, I would say, for more than 34 years. And so I've seen the program being without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic or social condition. And I'm quoting this because this comes right out of the constitution of WHO. Now, responding to your question on what is WHO doing on food systems transformation, I would like to respond in like 4 points. And I use the title of this event that says Food Systems Transformation, Elevating Healthy Diets, Protein Diversification as Climate Solutions. So I'll speak a little bit about these 4 things. First of all, food systems transformation. So is WHO working on food systems transformation? Yes, we are. We're a health agency, but we're a nutrition department. We have a food systems unit. And so here I am. So food systems need to deliver safe, sustainable, healthy and affordable diets that build on and respect local culture, culinary practice, and knowledge. And unhealthy diets have become a primary source of poor health. You mentioned it already, Rabbi, on the non-communicable diseases. So not only poor health, but also environmental degradation around the world with glaring disparities between rich and poor. So what are we doing? WHO and our department, we are providing standards, scientific advice on food and nutrition, food safety risk assessments, you mentioned AMR and so already, and we provide evidence-based guidance on nutrient requirements across the different life stages, nutrition policy recommendations, and so on. We also provide implementation tools to strengthen food systems, support multi-sectoral policies, because nutrition is multi-sectoral. It's not just health. It's about agriculture, it's about education, it's about financing. Today is Finance Day, so definitely. And nutrition is also very political, I would say. So, and we monitor the implementation of policies at country level. We provide support to member states, member states that really try to reduce the burden of diseases caused by unhealthy food, unhealthy diets, and malnutrition. And we do that in close collaboration with UN partners, such as FAO and the other Rome-based agencies, but also civil society organizations and other stakeholders. And for example, what we do is we have developed a narrative that food systems need to deliver health. And that really is sometimes lacking. It's about food systems and the link to agriculture, but ultimately, food systems need to deliver healthy diets for health and well-being. So we've developed that narrative, and we've also developed a policy package that we are promoting. And for WHO, our policy package is looking more at the, if you look across the food system from farm to fork, our policies are impacting more towards the fork and the food environment level. So we have a policy package that includes fiscal policies, for example, like through fiscal tools, how can you promote and stimulate like healthy foods and like reduce or tax unhealthy foods. So these are mechanisms that work. Nutrition labeling, so that consumers can understand what is good for me, what is not good for me. We have regulation of marketing of food, of unhealthy food. Food fortification, we work on food safety, and also importantly, public food procurement. That's a very powerful tool, public food procurement, to food that is served in public schools, hospitals, prisons, ministries, the canteens. Just imagine that the money that government invests in serving meals in those public institutions, if that food would be sustainable and healthy. And I think maybe there will be more discussion on that. So that's the first one, and I hope I'm not taking too much time. The second one is elevating healthy diet. That's the second part of the title of this event. So yeah, that's why we are here also as WHO, is to elevate the narrative around healthy diets. Because unhealthy diets, the unhealthy diets, the multiple burden of malnutrition and non-communicable diseases, they are closely linked with each other. A global increase in the availability of inexpensive, high-calorie foods, often from staple cereal crops, that it has reduced hunger, yes, and you mentioned that also, but we do have also the problem of overweight, obesity, and NCDs, and so we need to focus on all forms of malnutrition, which include hunger, but also include micronutrient deficiencies, and which include overweight, obesity, and diet-related NCDs. So we need to promote, for example, fresh fruits, vegetables, legumes, pulses, and nuts. And that's sometimes a problem, because access to those healthy foods, it's not equally distributed. And we need to help in making those healthy choices the most accessible and affordable choices for people. So for healthy diets, we're also working together with FAO on a new narrative, and we want to promote 4 core principles of healthy diets that are valid wherever you are, because what you eat is very context specific, it's linked to your culture, to your religion, but there are 4 core principles that are valid everywhere, and that's adequacy, balance, moderation, and diversity. I will not, maybe we can go further into that, but like diversification, protein diversification is also part of the title of this event. Okay, 1 minute, I'll be short. Protein diversification, we need to eat foods from different food groups, and within food groups, we also need to eat different foods. So that's the diversification part. And finally, climate solutions. We're here at the Climate COP. We do have an initiative called the Initiative on Climate Action and Nutrition, where we try to link this. It's a win-win. Healthy and sustainable food and climate action. It was mentioned, food systems produce 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So if we link climate and nutrition agendas together, we can move faster. So we have had the Health Day. We will have the Food Day on the 10th of December, but every day needs to be a Healthy Nutrition Day. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Lina, and congratulations also to all the community that worked on connecting climate change and health and all the issues. It was like also something in the past that was not evident, and I think we're seeing like quite a lot of progress also at this COP in making the connections between climate, food, health, and the whole nexus. So it's really great to see that. Our next speaker is Gabriela Rawani. Gabriela is a policy officer at the Baha'i International Community's United Nations office in Geneva. Gabriela holds a master in health and international development from the LSE and political science. Her area of work focuses on contributing to discourses concerned with the well-being of humanity in the areas of food security, public health, and peace. Gabriela, can you tell us how value-based approaches can assist in bridging the gap between knowledge and action for food systems transformation, and what specific role maybe you can see for youth in that?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay. First, I'll just say thank you so much for having me on this panel and being with so many distinguished speakers. It's wonderful, and I'm grateful to be able to share some remarks. But to answer your question sort of around a values-based approach and how we can bridge sort of this knowledge into action and the role of youth, I mean, if we just start off by looking at the world around us, it's really not hard to see how our systems and structures are disintegrating, right? Like whether that be from sort of the impacts of human-induced climate change or also the pre-existing social and economic inequalities that come out of this, our food systems inherently are affected by this. And whether that be from rising sea levels and that increasing level of sort of saltwater intrusion and impacting soil health, or whether that be from harmful farming practices impacting our ability to grow nutritious food. And so these are merely symptoms of a greater illness and a greater sickness that inhibits us from developing an inclusive and diverse and dynamic food system, and one that's able to meet the diverse needs of a rapidly changing society. And so whether that be the poor treatment of the land or the disregard and value for human life, this is merely a reflection of our current global values towards humanity and, you know, towards these essential systems and structures that are supporting us and human life. And so this lack of empathy and a desire for individualism and sort of material gains regardless of the cost is really at the expense of from us really realizing our true oneness out of all of this. And so one way of thinking about these systems is that the whole of humanity as being one human body, and that if one part of the body is affected, all parts of the body are affected, whether that be the ear, the eye, the hand, and that being the same if we think about if one section of society is impacted, all of society is impacted. And so, you know, systems don't work in isolation. They harmoniously coexist, they develop, and they advance because true progress, true advancement, and true transformation of our food systems will come out of this desire to see us as a whole rather than just looking out for the interests of a select few. And so really enacting change within these systems is not going to come from a top-down approach. It's going to take a grassroots approach that really is rooted in principles of oneness, justice, and empathy that kind of guide and shape community structures. And so these systems and structures continually evolve and sort of are revised over time from the ground, and they're combined with knowledge generation and action. They're not something that's separate. And so if I could just share one example with you of how this is sort of translated, this knowledge into action. I'd like to share about the Foundation for the Application and the Teaching of Science, or FUNDAC, which is an NGO which is inspired by Baha'i principles from Colombia about 40 years ago, and they focus on improving knowledge in areas such as agriculture, bridging together traditional knowledge, modern science, and values to enhance food production processes, develop community structures, and support collective well-being. And so this organization has been dedicated to developing the capacity of people to contribute to the well-being of their communities while also advancing their own capacities themselves. And so, you know, they also engage with areas such as soil health, pest and disease management, and harvest, all of which contribute to sort of the food system that ultimately allows us to have healthier diets. And in particular, a program sort of to highlight the role of youth. They have a program called Preparation for Social Action, and so, or PSA, and it's aimed at developing the capacity of young people to develop scientific knowledge, where they can, you know, they study texts, where they learn about the environment, but then they also can engage in conversations, right? So they're able to learn, but then they're also able to learn from others. This is a collective process. This is not something that's isolated or separate. And, you know, it's interesting because the graduates of this program, you know, what they call them are called promoters of community well-being. And so this truly does attest to the this approach that is embracing knowledge development and also empowering individuals to think of ways of developing their own communities and capabilities, being of service, inspiring others, and collectively working towards sustainable and resilient food systems from the ground up, which is really, really important. And so if we think about this example, and if we think about some of the qualities and also what some of the other speakers have mentioned, that this experience from the grassroots and applying this action has really highlighted the important role that youth can play in this process, in particular, as sort of a spearhead in this process. And so youth have really demonstrated this keen desire for justice and their ability to explore creative and interdisciplinary solutions and sort of address complex problems, attests really to the role that they should be, at the table, having those conversations and sharing those insights. And so also their willingness to learn and expand current knowledge while continuing to work towards the betterment of the whole world is something that, it's important because it comes together, the coming of scientific and technological advances alongside values and principles sort of demonstrates, again, that youth should really be part of this conversation more, and sort of how we can engage more with how knowledge should be integrated with our actions, and that adopting a mindset of learning rather than hyperfixating on just having results and constantly having these results. We should be engaging with youth, we should be engaging with farmers, we should be engaging with members of the community, all members of the community, and creating a dialogue and approach that's just, empathetic, holistic, and diverse, so that these food systems can be visualized. Because that's another thing too, is what do we need? One community, the circumstances will be different from another community, but we must learn this together. And that sort of the local realities need to be addressed, and that the institutions, should support this. And that transforming in a system will not happen overnight, but for this true lasting change, we need to sort of, again, how can we combine values of justice, empathy, and oneness with science that we already have to create food systems that truly address those needs and actually show us, how knowledge and action together are able to transform from the grassroots level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you for this thought. And of course, food systems are very complex, and the context, of course, matters, as there's no one-size-fits-all solutions for that. We'll have our next speaker is Dr. Ming-Nan Lin, serving as the Vice Superintendent at Dalian Tzuchi Hospital. You're a family physician, and you hold a master degree in public health. Your work extends significantly into the environmental aspects of healthcare, particularly focusing on reducing the carbon footprint in the healthcare sector. A significant part of Dr. Lin's efforts involves advocating for a more plant-based diet as a means to achieve this goal. It's great to have you here, Dr. Lin, and thank you also for your flexibility on, because we have a limited number of seats on the table here. I would like to ask you, as a physician and public health expert, why do you work on plant-based diets?
Okay, thank you for your kind introduction, Raphael. It is my honor to be here to share with you my experience as a physician and advocate for planetary health. How can we achieve two functions in one actions? That is,
could we show the presentation? Sorry, I'm clicking.
Oh, okay.
Can we show the presentation on the screens?
Okay, but. So this is my title, one action for two functions. Actually, two solutions. Solution for personal health and planetary health. Besides working in Dalian Tzuchi Hospital, I'm now as the chair of Health Promoting Hospital International Network. We have a task force called HPH and Environment. And also I'm now serve as the president of Taiwan Vegetarian Nutrition Society. This is my outline. Plant-based diet is good for personal health and also for planetary health. I briefly talk about that. The first one is that the most concerned health issue Now, the zoonotic diseases, as you know, that we have so many Ebola, HIV, H5N1, and then SARS in the year 2002, swine flu, and then MERS, COVID, and then bird flu. These are all zoonotic diseases related to our eating habits. As you can see, there are 3 beds here: Ebola, SARS, and COVID. And we know that there's still more than 1,400 species of bats around the world. It carries more than 200 species of coronavirus, so we don't know when will be another pandemic come. So because we invade the natural habitats of all the animals, because we eat them, we have intimate contact with them. So if we want to keep our keep our population healthy, so we need to think about not to invade the natural habitat of the wild animals. And then from the personal health, as you can see here, this is a study back in 2016. JAMA published this paper. This prospective cohort study in U.S. healthcare professionals, including more than 17,000 participants. As you can see here, animal protein compared with plant-based protein, it will cause more all-cause mortality and also cardiovascular mortality. And this is what we have studied. For people adopt plant-based diet compared with omnivore, it will reduce like more than 30% of diabetes. This is a prospective cohort. We have this in our Tzu. And then besides that, we published a couple, this is the this is for diabetes. And then we published more than 13 papers to prove that plant-based diet is much more better compared with omnivore for personal health. And this is the, okay, we have do it from biopsychosocial aspects. And we also published a paper to prove that plant-based diet, people adapt plant-based diet will spend less medical expenditure compared with omnivore, like 17%, as you can see here. 17% less medical expenditure. So it is good for personal health. And then this is Professor Sabate. He wrote a book about environmental nutrition, which connect health and the nutrition with environmental sustainable diet. And then this, as you can see here, there's resources, nature world, and the human society. Resources from the land, solar radiation, water, fossil fuels, and it will go into the food cycle this year, and then agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. And for human demands, we have consumer, we have preference, we have policy. Then, because we use a lot of resources, the pollutions, and the food produced, we consume a lot of food, so people become like malnutrition, overweight, and then this will also cause the burden of healthcare system. And this is we call a double pyramid. Better food for health, as you can see here from the bottom. This is a pyramid, and then the food not good for health is the beef, is the lamb. And for environmental impact, if this beef, lamb cause much more environmental impact. So this double pyramid proves that we want to keep healthy and the environmental health, planetary health, that we need to adopt more plant-based diet. In Tzu Hospital, we provide only plant-based diet for all the patients and the staff. As you can see here, the carbon emission reduced in Tzu hospitals. In the year 2018, for the 6th hospital, we provide more than 3 million 3.6 million meals in the hospital, which will reduce more than 2,800 tons of carbon emissions. And then we also promote the plant-based diet. I'm currently serve as the president of Taiwan Vegetarian Nutritional Society, and we provide these recipes. And in our hospitals, we also, in Taipei, in Taichung, we have vegetarian Starbucks coffee. So if you want to sell Starbucks, then you need to provide only plant-based diet. And then we also been advocate around the world, task force of HPH International or CleanMed Europe, and we advocate for provide a plant-based diet. This is the final words I want to show with you, that if we want to keep ourselves healthy, and then we want the world become better, we need to be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lin, and thank you for also sticking to the 7 minutes. It's always like a challenge, so thank you so much. Our next speaker will be Deborah Triplett. Debbie leads the Campaign and Policy Advocacy Directorate within Compassion, directing cutting-edge and highly impactful campaigns and policy influencing on food systems with the aim of ending unsustainable global food systems practices. Debbie was previously at WWF for 8 years as Director of Advocacy and Policy and has a background in UK and EU law, representing many NGOs in environmental and climate litigation over a 20 years period. So Debbie, can you tell us a little bit more your thoughts about policy and how do we bridge the gap between knowledge and action?
Thank you, Raphael, and I want to begin by thanking you and the organisers for this really important event and to be here with this really prestigious panel engaging in this important discussion. And I want to begin, if I may, by agreeing with two panelists, Rabbi Rosen and Lena, in two separate ways. I think it's right for Rabbi Rosen to say it is scandalous that diets and nutrition haven't been at the centre of the climate talks up till now. Especially as we've heard, we know a lot about the unsustainability of the current food system. Much of the science is really pretty clear. I mean, this year alone, Compassion in World Farming have put out reports on avian flu driven by intensive agriculture. We've put out reports on the health disbenefits of eating a high-impact animal and dairy diet. We've put out just recently a report on the terrible cruelty and numbers of unknown data of animals being transported around the world to sustain intensive farmed agriculture. So the environmental impacts are increasing, I would say, in relation to the system that we have in place. But I want to also agree with Lena in that we are, I think, really at the beginning of this debate. Whilst the science is quite clear, we're really at the beginning of what needs to change and how we change it. And I think this COP shows that there is momentum, and I think I agree with Lena, there is positivity in that we should be taking away. I also think that narratives are really important, and the narrative that the food we eat will shape the future we want isn't really one that's very well understood yet within the climate COP. And what we mean by that is that industrial farmed animals at the current scale comes with huge environmental impacts, huge climate emissions, and therefore should really be, as we've heard, 30% of agricultural emissions, should really be one of the sort of central issues that we're talking about if we want the type of future that is sustainable for ourselves and for future generations. And I put into that a huge lack of compassion, to be honest, for sentient animals that are at the heart of the way our system works. And I think that this point was driven home recently by the recent report by the Earth Commission. That's Johan Rockström's sort of commission, the person who's behind Planetary Boundaries. They evidence a lot about environmental tipping points that are being reached as a result of human consequences on the climate and water stress, etc. But significantly, they added a new tipping point in their recent report, which was humans' capacity to live on Earth, which they also saw as nearing a tipping point. And I think that's really hugely significant. How we produce and consume food really sits at the nexus of our future on this planet, and will significantly impact on humans' capacity to avoid tipping points, just as the Earth Commission has pointed out. And I think, for example, one of the very clear tipping points around food and human health, which is just coming very much to the fore, and Lena will no doubt know very much about all the science behind this, is the use of antibiotics in industrial farmed animals. Over 70% of all antibiotics are given to farmed animals just so that we can farm them in the industrial processes that we do. And this is clearly giving rise to ever more antibiotic resistance and is fast becoming a huge global concern, and in itself could also be a tipping point for humanity, leading to, of course, antibiotic resistance. And I think there was a very good WHO report which pointed out that that could kill up to 10 million people a year by 2050 if we don't start to reverse this particular trend. That is, you know, a very shocking statistic for us to really dwell on and think about. But antibiotics get into our systems in other ways. We've put out reports which this year alone which show that antibiotics get into our water system and also get into our food. So these are all different ways where our health is being impacted by the type of diet that we're eating and the way that we're producing food. So food sits at the nexus of our future as humans. I think we should be looking really urgently at how better to restructure both our public and economic systems. I think there would be no disagreement around that, so that we can provide societies with more balanced and healthy diets. And when I say that, I mean diets that are culturally acceptable to the global north and the south's nutritional needs, because this is really also something very important in the debate. They're not the same, and we cannot have a debate on diets that make out that these issues are the same for the global north and the global south. Also, in another report, we demonstrate that 25 of the highest consuming countries of animal source foods all reside in the global north. So it's a global north problem to some extent. We talk about sustainable, lowering the climate and nature impacts, of course, of a high animal source protein diet. So the notion, I think, of a balanced and healthy diet really should be seen not just as a health issue, but as a public good, and also, of course, as a planetary imperative. We should be talking about securing our future nutritional needs as much as our future food security needs. And I would add to that the animal issue, given the billions of livestock in the system, not to mention aquaculture, which often gets overlooked. So one of the means, I think, for achieving a balanced and healthy diet really requires the right sizing, if I can put it that way, of the industrial animal farm sector. We need to be clear that this is mostly a high-consuming global north problem, as I've said. And currently, this sector, the industrial animal farm sector, is totally disproportionate to its benefits, especially in terms of its protein and calorie value to humans. We heard another speaker make reference to that. And also, I would say, obviously, its negative environmental and climate impacts. We put out a report, More Money, More Meat, which details to a large extent these inefficiencies, but just to pick up a couple of inefficiencies. Industrially farmed animals take up over 3/4 of agricultural land, yet they only provide our diets with 18% of our calories and 37% of our protein. It's so inefficient that for every 100 calories fed to animals, only 17 to 30 calories are passed along to the human consumer of animal-sourced food. Most of these calories are fed to animals as cereals, and some 40 to 45% of all cereals grown globally go to animal feed rather than to feed humans. And obviously these inefficiencies place great pressure on the environment and on the climate. So by right-sizing the industrial farm sector, that means, what we mean by that is bringing animals back into more regenerative agricultural systems at the right level. And I'd point out, if you haven't read it, the UN Convention on Combating Desertification recent report on drought, it stated that if we substitute half of animal products, such as pork, chicken, beef and milk, that we consume globally, with more sustainable alternatives, which I would say a balanced and healthy diet, we could almost fully halt, this is their words, the conversion of forests and natural land for agriculture. That's a really startling finding. So how can we achieve these policy shifts? Overall, we believe you need policy, obviously, across multiple functional areas. It's a complex issue. But we see three really big shifts. At the global level, we think it's important, we see the role of balanced and healthy diets playing a really important part in the nexus of the SDGs. And in terms of the UNCCD report that I just mentioned, in terms of that dietary shift, we need to be thinking about targets around how much consumption of animal-sourced products we allowed in our diets, probably through dietary guidelines. I'm finishing. We also would point you to the groundbreaking resolution of the UNEA, which acknowledges the intersectionality between animal welfare, the environment, and sustainable development, and we're now waiting UNEP's forthcoming report on that. And at the national level, we think that there should be comprehensive food strategies within every NDC produced by the UNFCCC, and these policies should consider creating food environments that promote a balanced and healthy and sustainable diet. And third, we would point to market incentives to shift public and private investment and shifting subsidies. We can't do anything really without shifting those subsidies towards more diverse protein systems. And I'd just like to end on a comment by the UN Special Rapporteur for the Right to Food, Oliver de Schutter, who said no healthy diet should be more expensive than an unhealthy diet. I think we could all agree with that. Food systems are rife with subsidies. Let's make sure they're working for us and not going to end us. And I don't think I could say it any better than that. So I'm going to end there. Thank you very much, Raphael.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Our next speaker is Karina Gonçalves David, is a young agroforestry farmer in Brazil, where she has been growing food in a syntropic agroforestry system. More than to grow food, she's also an activist, and at a local level, she is part of the participatory guarantee system of the Ecovida network. At the national level, she is currently the director of the southern region of the Organic Brazil Institute. And at the international level, she is part of INOFO. Karina, can you share a bit about your work from a farmer's perspective, and of course tell us a bit more also about agroforestry in general?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm Karina. I'm from Brazil, and I'm a woman and a young organic agroforest farmer. So here, I'm really thankful for this invitation, Rafael, and I'm really thankful to listen to my colleagues. And here I'm the base of the food production. Here it's my farm. So I want to start our conversation here, showing you my work there with agroforestry system production. So once you see this picture, what you can see is lots of monoculture production. But if you look more close, you can see a forest. And lots of people think that forests don't produce food, but it's not true. We have a letter when the Portuguese arrived in Brazil, Pero Vaz de Caminha. He described the images that he had seen in Brazil when he arrived there. And in this letter, he says, In Brazil, we can find, it's not the name in that time, but we can find lots of forests, we can find different kinds of plants, and we can not find lands. Agriculture, it's not here. But when we see this description of this kind of plants that this man was describing, we can see that it's not planting from Brazil. So what I wanted to say to you that the forests everywhere are planted by indigenous people. And at the same time the forests are planted, the desert are made for people. So what we want for our future? We want desert or we want forests that produce food? And it is agroforestry system. We linked forest principles with agriculture. And that I want to show you that it is possible. Okay? So when we arrived at our farmer, me and my husband, Thales, we didn't have anything. We didn't have access. We didn't have water. We didn't have a house. And we didn't have, we only have a dream and a desire to do and land access. That is a really huge problem in Brazil, land access. But we started to do this food production in agroforestry system. So this is a picture of the beginning of our work there. And when we was looking around our neighborhoods, we saw lots of monoculture, and we always know that we don't want to do this kind of agriculture with chemical production, and it didn't make sense for us to produce in this way. Because, nature and forests they know how to do. It's natural. And people, what they did, they go in a different way of nature. Nature teaches us how to do, because forests grow alone by itself. And what the humans did, they go in a different way, opposite way. So agroforestry systems show that we can go in the same way. Nature can work with us and to us, for us. So here we take these forest principles and we reproduce it in lines. So we plant trees and vegetables together. We harvest tons of food in our farm, and we have biodiversity. And biodiversity, it's about health security. Because once we don't have biodiversity, we don't have a nature process. And what is happened? We're gonna have insects, we're gonna have problems of soil. So once we put agroforestry or biodiversity or agroecology process in our way to grow food, we certainly gonna have lots of food, tons of food. And in my farm, we have 2 hectares. It's not too much, but it's a lot of food we harvest there. If you look to the second picture, maybe you can't see, but there's a broccoli there. First time you look, you think it's lots of plants together, mixed, it's crazy, but no, it's a system and it's a technology. Agroforestry system is a technology to grow food, to produce. So we grow fruits, vegetables, and now we are focused on this food, this protein food. There is shiitake mushroom. And I take my shiitake mushroom to show to you here. So we grow eucalyptus tree, and we cut these trees in logs, and we plant mushroom inside this log, and we can harvest for kinds of 2 years. And then when we stop the harvest this shiitake, we back this wood to the soil. So we can do a circle production when we eat, soil eats, and we can find a better place before we are there. And what we need to do to stop crime crisis, to link food production with the solution that we need to stay here like humanity at this planet, it's linked this. We need to find process that help, that when we go out of this place, we look back and we find a better place. This is our mission too, in our farm. Some more pictures. We always have the soil cover. This is so important for the agroforestry system. And we sell our production at the street market directly to the people. And some of my colleagues here say that nutrition are politicals, and I agree. I agree because nutrition are about political. And you here, when you buy something, you are doing a political choice. So it's really good when you go to the street market and you buy directly to the farmers. It's a change, and it's with us. It's our choice. We can choose that. Maybe some people can think that's not a good or a big solution, but it is. Believe. We have online shopping, so technology, it's really good, and we really like it. People think that agroecology people, organic producer, don't like technology, but it's not true. We love and we need more technology. So here, the shiitake mushroom again. And we know we share knowledge because we think this is really important, and people want to see how we do. People want to see how it works. And we believe that once we do that, people back home different. It's a kind of transformation. And you don't need to be a farmer to do this change. If you share knowledge, or if you believe in this way to produce food, you can do a lot. So here we have a symbol of the difference between monoculture and agroforestry. And one point very important are people inside it. Because sometimes when we think about food production, we think about earth, we think about the soil, we think about everything, but we don't think about people. And people, it's the base of agriculture. And people need to be good in this place. People need to be happy with this work. In our farm, we have the same powerful voice between men and women. This is really important too. Because sometimes when you go inside the farm, the men arrive and the men show all the work and the women are at the kitchen. This is not agroecology, because we can have a food without chemical, without poison, but if we have difference between men and women powerful, it's not organic food, I think, like this. So we need, like an organic farmer here, doing this representation, we need support, we need to change, we need to do it faster, because we don't need much time, you know. We are watching and live the crisis, and we need a lot of support, but crises need money too, because when we have lots of rain or dried, the government needs to put money in it too. So put money in the agroforest, put money in organic farmer, put money where we can do and see the change we need, and we need faster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karina. So we'll have one more speaker, and then we'll go to the question and answer. Thank you so much, Karina. So the next speaker is Melinda Hu from the Good Food Fund in China. Melinda is the executive director of the Good Food Fund based in Beijing, which engages in active national and global collaboration with the goal of driving a transition towards a healthier and more sustainable food system in China. She leads the Good Food Fund teams working on projects that focus on plant-forward, animal welfare, healthy eating, and the promotion of food literacy to guide consumers to a low-carbon, healthy and sustainable diet that replaces animal proteins, particularly those produced in factory farming, in people's daily diet with a high-quality, biodiverse, plant-based diets. Melinda is speaking today for the Good Food Fund on behalf of Brighter Green. Melinda, I would like to ask you what are some of the opportunities and challenges you're facing when the Good Food Fund promotes the plant-forward food system concept in the Chinese context?
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks, Rafi, for your introduction. Thanks for the organizer and our partner, Bright Green, the executive director of Ms. Mia McDonald's, for facilitating us to participate this event. And it's so glad that I have the opportunity to share our experience and practices in promoting sustainable health diets in China. The Good Food Fund was established in 2017. Our goal is to promote the concept of good food, which is produced from a healthy and sustainable food system that contributes to improving human health, natural environment, the living conditions of animals, to achieve the vision of one world, one health. Over the past 30 years, with the rapid development of China's economy, the nutrition level of Chinese people has dramatically improved. However, the general Chinese public awareness of the impact of food choices, dietary choices, on animals' personal health, environmental health, and climate change and food biodiversity loss is low. From this data, from the data of this chart, it can be observed that excessive meat consumption is a challenge shared by many countries, and promoting healthy and sustainable diet is the core issue that we are committed to addressing. And we believe that it is the most powerful lever to transform the food system. But you know, the healthy and sustainable, the concept of a healthy and sustainable diet is too broad. It lacks of specific directions and guidance on how achieve these goals in daily life. So in April 2019, to match this gap, the Good Food Fund released the Good Food Pledge. And basically, it is likely the UN Sustainable Development Goals in sustainable food area. And the first principles we put a particular focus on is plant forward. And this means that plant-based ingredients no less than 85% of each meal. And it quite well aligns with the recommendations in Chinese residents' dietary guideline. And all our work, like projects, campaigns, are designed and shaped around the core values of the Good Food Pledge, especially focusing on the first three principles. And we collaborated with individuals, organizations, and business from China around the world to develop the series projects. And the projects we are in the operation includes like a Good Food Summit, New Year Good Food Earth Relay, and Best Practice Collection, Meatless Monday campaign, youth program, by diverse project, ingredients project, and the web market, and all those things. And all of them, each of the project focus on different stakeholders and food consumption scenarios. Like for the Good Food Summit, since we established in 2017, every year we have a Good Food Summit. It plays a great role to raise the public and the industrial awareness. And it's accumulated like 2 million online viewers for this summit. And in 2021, with the opening of a food system, UN Food System Summit, we established the China Food Systems Action Hub. For the past 3 years in the Action Hub, we're connecting all the stakeholders in food supply chain, food value chain, organizing workshops, dialogues, and collecting the best practices. And all those best practices we collected have received continuous praise from the experts and evaluators, and they like it very much. And they told us that when they developed the policy recommendations, and those best practices is a very good, valuable reference. One of the reasons for the people, for the customer are not willing to choose plant-based diet is that they have the view that the vegetarian food is not tasty. To challenge this how to solve this problem, that we developed the Eco Chef program, that we train the chefs to not only develop the delicious meals and also the dishes with more nutrition. And today we are focused on the restaurants. And because we think restaurants not only link the production side and also the consumer side. And this year we developed the climate-friendly restaurant standards. And we work with one of the very influential a media commercial media platform, and Bang Media, and with its sustainable lifestyle brand Go Green to launch the Green Catering Award plan. And this media platform, by leveraging all of their media channels, these campaigns exploration is expected to see 100 million viewers. So we would like to encourage all the industries to be involved in the green development practices. And for the youth program, since our establishment, we have focusing on empowering youth to involve them into the food system change. And we developed many different activities for them to take part in. And okay, do we have time to show the videos?
I think it will be a little bit short for the Q&A then, so we'll have 1 more minute or 2 minutes if you would like.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I want to show a video for you to have to look the young people who went to the Yunnan province and to work with the local ethnic minority people to explore their local food wisdom to combine with sustainable healthy concept. In the videos to show you, but yeah, I'm not sure whether later on we'll see.
How long is the video?
2 minutes.
Can we launch the video briefly?
Okay. Yeah, 20 young people so far.
上酒。
Cô làm một cái gì không? Người đó phải cô lại lên. Cái hoạt động của mình không là được tài không được 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 Singapore hay được chúng ta không làm.
Chào lô cao á san đi leo cu chắc bạn vô khói cô tại hà cu chắc bạn gần khám cô chạy xinh nắng ơi cu chính ban thân kiều.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Melinda. All right, we have like 16 minutes left for the event. So Rabbi Rosen, you mentioned different Jewish traditions like at the beginning. I think discussions and asking questions is also part of that. I would like to open the floor and take maybe 3 or 4 questions. And I would ask like the different panelists to also, like, if they would like to answer the question, to raise their hands for Dr. Lin and Karina, and also to provide a few concluding thoughts, as we will not have the time, I think, to go through like everyone again. So if you have a question, I would like you to raise your hand and we will give you a microphone. I see Charles. It's coming.
Thank you. I really enjoyed and valued all the presentations. Thank you so much. I was struck by Deborah's comment about no healthy diet should be more expensive than an unhealthy diet. And I'm just aware of the perverse subsidies, $1.5 trillion a year spent on destroying the environment rather than protecting it. And I'm just wondering, and if perverse subsidies were a country, it would have a seat on the G20, as big as the economy of Mexico. My question to Deborah is, any ideas on how to get a handle on these perverse subsidies, which are really undermining the ability to have healthy, nutritious foods? Any thoughts you have on that would be welcome.
Thank you, Charles. We'll take 2 more questions. I see in the back, and we can maybe take 1 more actually, and yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question to Lina. You mentioned that the WHO developed some guidelines to policymakers to change the taxonomy, basically to promote a shift to sustainable diet on the consumption side. So I was just wondering whether you are aware of how many countries have actually adopted those taxonomy guidelines which you have developed, or which your organization has developed. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we can take 2 more, as the questions were relatively short. Let's see here.
So I saw here in the word that there are sponsors on compassion and religion. So my question is on values and how important it is. Maybe Dr. Rosen, Rabbi Rosen can help answer on what values do we really promote to encourage healthy and perhaps plant-based diet? How can we get there, and how spirituality, for instance, or religion can further, support that development, that we can adopt a more sustainable and healthy diet?
Thank you. Is there 1 more question? All right, I think we can start like with this. I would suggest that we simply go like through the different speakers, and if you have like also a comment you would like to bring to another question, feel free to do so, but we could maybe start from your side, Melinda.
Actually, in my presentations, I shared some challenges and also the works we are doing. And for the last 2 years, we also see some positive changes in this progress because you know right now green development of agriculture and dual carbon goals in China are the national policies. So that helps that the ESG is the very hot topic in China to involve the business to focus on these areas. So we are quite, we see some very good progress in these areas. And also in last years, the new version of Chinese dietary guideline launched, and it proposed like a plant-rich oriental diet in China, which is like the healthy and sustainable slow dietary. And all of this is a good sign for us to promote our work and to make collect with all the stakeholders in food value chain to make progress in this area. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Melinda. Debbie?
I think I got the difficult question. Don't mind me saying so. I think what you're referring to is really all those negative externalities that make bad food cheap at the moment, and which make, you know, what we're talking about, healthy diets, really expensive, especially for ordinary consumers. And I'm sure you're aware there's lots of conversation out there about the different ways in which we might address that. I mean, it seems to me that one key principle that's not used in this sector, which is used in other sectors, is the polluter pays. You know, how do we make the polluter pay? And I guess one reason that's not universal at the moment is because it's quite a long supply chain. So which polluter along the supply chain is paying? But to some extent, we do need to have a system that incorporates polluters paying for those negative externalities. That's one aspect. The other aspect is shifting subsidies, of course, because if you start to shift those subsidies, you allow farmers to also shift the way that they can shift towards regenerative agriculture, growing more diverse protein, which of course cannot be done overnight. You cannot just shift your whole farming system, especially if it's intensive in that way. So that then begs the question of governments buying into that. And, you know, we had in the European Union the farm to fork process. It's, you know, a shame that it's been captured to some extent by the agribusiness lobby and slowed down, but I think it will speed up again after the EU elections, because I think we can't stop progress. I think the EU know that this is a direction of travel. You might want to look at the Food and Land Use Coalition report that calculated the costs involved in moving to healthy diets. And they showed that savings from reducing negative externalities was $1,280 billion, huge amount of money, and the investment required to do that would be $30 billion. So, you know, they're big numbers, but, you know, it shows that it's cheaper to invest now. They have a further number, which is how much you gain from investing in that way, but I don't have that to hand.
Thank you. Rabbi Rosen?
So thank you for your question. It's really interesting because you've got, I would say, we can't generalize about any religion anywhere because religions are not the same thing from one place to another, let alone between one another. But there is the challenge of the dichotomies that religion raises. For example, the tension between the material and the spiritual, or even within our modern world, though it's actually a very new development, the tension between religion and science. And these are things that we actually need to address, and we need to be able to address them within our communities so that people understand health as a religious value, or that they understand science like Maimonides in the 12th century did, insisting that you cannot be religious if you are not involved in science. If you don't study science, you're not involved in science, you can't be a religious person. That was his view, because you can't appreciate the glory and the complexity of the natural world. So these are challenges, especially for religious representatives, leaders, and educators, to make sure that people understand these values within the context of their respective traditions. I could go on a great deal, but really what a project that one of our organizations needs to do is to be able to develop a guidebook as to what are the essential arguments, quotes, texts that need to be presented in each religious tradition to advocate for health, sustainability, and ecological responsibility.
Thank you. Gabriella?
I can speak to the question around values and sort of healthy diets. One thing that comes to mind is obviously taking a grassroots approach, but also the role of education, because we know that our thoughts shape our sort of ideas, and our ideas shape our behaviors and our actions. And obviously this is something that takes time, but overall, you know, instilling those values of justice and empathy and sort of central oneness, you know, if that pervades into those conversations that we have and those systems that we uphold, then over time we will see shifts.
Lina?
Yes, I would like to respond to your question. The core principles of the healthy diet that I mentioned, those 4 ones, they were presented in July. It's very recent. The paper that will provide the background is still under development, so this is really a heads up. It will be coming. It's a collaboration together with FAO, but for sure we monitor countries in the implementation of the policies that we promote. And we do that very regularly, and it's all publicly available on our website. It's a database called GINA. And just to mention that also in our government structure, we have executive board meetings and then the World Health Assembly. And so we report regularly on nutrition policy. And so the next executive board that will happen in January and our World Health Assembly in 2024, nutrition is on the agenda. And so member states, countries can comment on it. It's an opportunity to highlight what countries are doing with regard to their policy work. And I just want to flag also, it has been mentioned yesterday as well, that a number of countries are preparing a resolution on health and climate with a number of champion countries that are leading this, including Peru and the Netherlands, but there's also other countries, Brazil, the US, UK. And so they are currently negotiating the text of the health and climate resolution that would be discussed and then brought for the World Health Assembly in 2024. So we hope that countries will make sure that there is, again, narrative in there referring to the importance of healthy and sustainable diets. That's something that countries decide. It's not us.
Thank you, Lina. Karina?
So I think in this point of politics for health and nutrition, in Brazil we have lots of cases and successful cases where we can provide organic food for school meals. And it's 2 good things, because one of them is we have organic food for children. And second one, we pay 30% more for the farmers because they produce in an organic way. So we have lots of good experience. We need to share this experience between the countries, and we need to go ahead. And one question I want to say here is, what we gonna be talking in next COP? I don't want to talk the same problems, you know. I don't want to come here and to talk same things. We need to go ahead, and we need to take this experience and go to action and do something. Otherwise, we're gonna do more 30 COPs talking about same thing and don't do enough, you know. So this is a call to action for everyone, and is a multidisciplinary action. It's not about farmer or organizations or government. It's about everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Dr. Lin?
I also want to talk about action. You know, in our hospital, we give a lot of subsidy. You can like only $2 for a whole day's 3 meals, because the value of our hospital is that we provide healthy diet and also for planetary health. And then you can see I show a lot of research. Do you know why? Because when I'm talking to our colleagues, say that plant-based diet is better for health. And they say that it's all Western research. There's no Oriental research. So we create a cohort and follow for like 10 years to prove that. That's kind of action. And then, you know, as you know, for medical students or in the training, we don't provide nutritional knowledge. It is healthy for plant-based diet for health, and even now, climate change is very important. And food, methane is also very important for climate change. So we need to do that, to do the research, to spread the news, and then to incorporate climate change issue into the professional training, like in physician training, medical student training, and every field. And so we have to do it. We have to promote it, and then we give subsidy actually for research. So I would like to say that we need to put it into the daily living so we can really make a change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lin. I have 90 seconds to close, so I will just say that, you know, thank you all for attending. Thank you to the organizers, and thank you to the participants and the speakers of this side event. Thank you also specifically to the technical team that made everything work very well today, so it's always great when things work well. My message is very simple. Like, when we think of where we were at 6 years ago in Katowice, in Bonn, or just 5-6 years ago, we still made some progresses. We have managed to see some connections between food systems and climate change. We have the Emirates Declaration, we have the NSA Declaration, the FAO roadmap coming next week, the Sharm el-Sheikh joint work that will continue. So my message is really keep engaging within this space. Also spend some time also at the entrance, closer to the negotiators and the delegations, etc. Knock at doors, try to make things change, engage with of course the different policy makers, because we have made the connection, and now we need to see action to transform the food systems, and we really need to see the right action, which is moving towards diversifying protein intakes, which is healthy plant-rich diets. And we know the solutions, but we really have to make sure that decision makers understand that too. So thank you very much for attending, and we will do now a short picture with the panelists, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you.